Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us again on the OK Now What Show, episode 4, part 2. We've got Kevin Price, one of the co-founders of Trunk Club. Kevin last left us off where he was talking about one of the hardest things to replace that he's looking for in his next startup will be the people, how culture was so important in the success of Trunk Club. And in this part, we get a little deeper into that, and he talks about how sometimes the end game is not the money, it's the people. Hope you guys enjoy. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Because then you sell a company and people make money, and then you have this. You might have a new lifestyle, you might not, and you get used to that, and it's not about that.
So wait, you're saying because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to start startups to just make a bunch of money. But you're saying the most valuable thing that startup was not the money, it was the relationships and the culture that was built. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that you value most out of what you did.
Yeah, and I think when you think about the outcome and what the outcome has really done for people, like obviously some people made great money, some people made good money, some people made no money at all after that, but it created opportunity.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a really good point.
It created careers and opportunities and sought after candidates for other jobs, and now if you look around and see where people are at, like they're all doing interesting things. What we're finding is that it's not always a success. That next company isn't always a success for people. More often than not, they're actually not happy because they came from something great, and it's the next thing isn't what they used to have. And but people are figuring it out. There's actually people now that have started companies, but it's taken some time. It's taken a few years.
Yeah. So now, where do you spend most of your time? Are you helping other startups? Are you?
Yeah. I in my exploratory phase. Yeah. I've had a couple concepts that I've just started trying out, and like any other startup, you're just doing work and seeing what you like and seeing what's interesting and seeing what grabs on. And so far, I've basically figured out what I don't want to do.
Good.
But I'm starting to lean more towards what I'm interested in, but I still have a long way to go to figure out what I want to do next.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I certainly haven't cracked any codes.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you figured it out before. You're going to take it slow.
Yes.
You're just not going to jump into it.
Yeah, and again, Trunk Club hangover. When I had an idea not that long ago, probably 6 months ago, my initial instinct was like, all right, I need to build a team, I need to raise money, I need to go do this thing. Then I got into it, and through conversations with mentors and people I used to work with, they're like you should just try this out for a while and not hire anyone and not raise money, and you just got to figure it out. Like, what do you want to build first? And so I've slowed down, actually. It's like, you know what? Like, I should just figure out exactly what it is I want to do. And then once I got that figured out, go after it. Again, Trunk Club hangover, trying to shed that. I think I'm there now.
That's good. And I mean, like most hangovers, it will linger for a bit, and you'll regret that you even have it, but eventually it goes away, and then you start drinking again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think we have some mushrooms for that, though.
Yes, we do. Not like the illegal kind. There's healthy mushrooms that come from. Actually, it might be Norway. It might be Norwegians that do it. I don't know. Is it Norway, Sweden? Anyways, they're like one of them is called Lion's Mane, and one of them is called.
Yeah, the company's Four Sigmatic.
Yeah, the company's Four Sigmatic, and they take these wild mushrooms and then blend them into like coffee and stuff like that. Instant coffee. Gets you jacked up. Gets you all. Tim Ferriss was the one that talked about it.
Does it actually cure a hangover?
Yeah, it gets you good. Yeah, it gets you all fired up.
I mean, I'm
one
skeptical,
of them might.
But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, awesome, man. I love that story. I think it's obviously a lot of stuff to be proud of, a lot of stuff to figure out. But the cool thing is you've got no roadmap ahead of you, and then sometimes that's the best thing that you can even do.
Yeah, clearing the path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
Right now.
One, you mentioned something that's very near and dear to me because of what I do right now. You said you called Trunk Club the tech-enabled service. What I work in right now specifically, we are empowering tech-enabled agents, which is a tech-enabled service, obviously. Was that a term that y'all used in Trunk Club, that you're a tech-enabled service? You saw yourself as a tech company or a service company that was highly enabled by tech?
So we were a tech-enabled service. We were very like high-touch model, right? So we had these stylists. They had real relationships. It was one-to-one. They owned that relationship, and that worked fantastic for a very long time. And we built technology essentially to like help enable that relationship, help increase the efficiency of that stylist so that she could serve many customers at one-to-one. But that created a couple issues for us. One, like, when your customer has that relationship with the stylist, that's all fantastic when you don't have turnover, which we didn't really for 5 years. Once those stylists start leaving, then the customers started leaving. We saw a really high attrition rate on those customers. We didn't actually embed enough of Trunk Club brand into that service. They saw, they believed that their stylist was Trunk Club. Second thing we ran into was recruiting. When there's scarcity in the market for hiring technology people, from engineers to data scientists, when you're not the product, when technology is not the product, it's harder to hire a lot of those folks. But as we evolved, technology became more present. We continue to support the stylist. That was always a thing, but we built features, we built apps, we built experiences, digital experiences with the customer, so that we did become ultimately a technology company. We were at the price point where we have the quality of service and enough high touch where we can inject a lot of that human experience that Stitch Fix might not be able to do. They're at a lower price point. They have to extract more cost. Technology plays a much larger role. It's still I'd still say it's a tech-enabled service, but you could argue that it's a technology company.
I love that.
I do too.
It's interesting too because you guys were like way ahead of your time, because at that time there wasn't a lot of like subscription style services or anything like that, right? Or stuff.
Yeah, and Birchbox and us were really the first. We sent you stuff without you paying for it. That whole concept didn't really exist.
Blew people's minds,
which made it really hard to build that company because there wasn't technology, there wasn't software, there wasn't services for that model. We had to build a lot of it ourselves for the first time and make a lot of mistakes and build a really expensive infrastructure ourselves because nobody had done it yet.
Yeah.
So that part was hard, but it made it really interesting for people like me. Actually, how do you manage a business where you send out 5 times as much inventory as you actually sell? Yeah,
you got $1 million in inventory out there, and you're only selling 250,000.
It allowed your analytical people to be innovative in a way because you had to figure out new models to actually deploy to manage it all. So that's why it was like a really, really interesting and great role for me and others that weren't on the front lines. We quote unquote back office folks, but we had a lot of interesting things to work on over the years because it was super important to get that right, and it wasn't just like an e-commerce model where you point, click, purchase, ship. There was just a lot more complexity to it.
Yeah, cool.
So you mentioned Stitch Fix as this other company. When Stitch Fix came about, how did that model impact what you were doing?
That's a great question. We were aware of them pretty early. We actually didn't think it was a great service. We were pretty critical of it. And then looking back, there's probably some arrogance at play. Their clothing's crappy, it's low quality, and you don't actually get a stylist. You get one of many stylists, and but ultimately, they nailed it for their customer, and they invested in technology really early, heavily, and
I love that. I love that you just said that. I love that you said that they're like that. You gave kudos to their product and to their that's great.
Yeah, and they built a really scalable model for a very large market, and they figured out women first, how to serve that customer first, and that's a really massive market. They were in a really sweet spot price point, and they over the years they built a great model to support, a great business model to support that. And then after we got bought by Nordstrom, Stitch Fix started to rise. They started to get a lot of attention. Their numbers started to become more public. They actually filed to go public, and all of a sudden everyone knew how well they were doing. And that actually created a lot of pressure on us to improve our business model, because albeit we were this high touch model that was a different service. So we thought it was a very different experience. That's not what all customers thought. From a going to the website perspective, you line the two up, it actually looks like a similar service. But they had less expensive clothes. And we're serving a larger market and had a more efficient business model, frankly. And we had to transform our business at scale. We were a couple $100 million in, and realized that, to get to that billion mark, which was our goal, and was certainly, Nordstrom's goal for us to get their return, we had to change some things pretty drastically, and that was really hard. And because we feared that impact. We never had a fee, and we feared the customer just completely backfiring on us. And eventually we did it because we had to get the model to work. Because at scale, there's too many people that just try it out without ever an intention to actually purchase, and that becomes economically basically impossible to keep scaling. So we instituted that, and it worked great. Actually, completely transformed the model, and then we had to look at our sales team and say, hey, what used to work, what got us from 0 to 100 for men, isn't exactly working as well to get us from 100 to 300 on men plus women. And women shopped very differently than men. The whole model was very different, and we had to re-engineer a lot. It's funny because when we started in 2010, people still picked up the phone. They were actually willing to talk on the phone. And over the course of the next 5 years, people stopped answering their phone and wanted to message and text and all that and chat. And that's not how our original business model was built. So we had to, transform our model to be more modern communication. I'd say we learned as much post-acquisition as we did pre-acquisition because we still felt really passionate about making it work. We didn't just let it fall apart and let them take it over. We felt like we needed to lead that change, and we did.
Yeah, I know a few different business owners that their company hit a certain threshold. There was a period of stubbornness where it plateaued in their desire to hang on to what they thought was the model was more important than pivoting. But then this certain owner decided, I'm going to bring in an outside firm to analyze my company and give a completely impartial view of what we're doing. And sure enough, what they ended up discovering was they weren't as great as they thought they were, that there was other companies that were better than them, and that if they were going to survive, they needed to step up, and they needed to pivot, and they needed to make some hard choices, and that's what they did, and now they're one of the number one companies in their game. Yeah, I think that's probably that point of live or die with a lot of companies, is that inability to be flexible in that exact moment, right?
Yeah.
Again, and okay, now what moment? Okay, we've hit $100 million. We're plateauing, and our competitors are biting at our heels, and they've actually got a better product, and they're getting more market share. So what? Now what? What are we going to do?
Yeah, and that for us was real. I mean, we got to $100 million in 4 years. We got to $200 million in five and a half years, and then we stalled. We basically flattened out, and we're like, all right, okay, now what? We got to change. We had to change because the economics just weren't working at that scale, and things are just different at scale, or different when you're bought by a Nordstrom. You inherit some of their cost structure, and everything's different. And I think that's one thing that startup type folks don't totally understand. The growth is not linear, right? It's actually gonna get harder. Getting from 0 to 10 million is obviously hard. Not a lot of companies do that. Getting from 10 to 100 is also very hard. Very few companies do that. Growing past that is actually super rare and super hard. Everything changes on you. Not everything, but some core things change on you. You don't know what they are, when that's going to happen. But what's important is that you acknowledge that something's changed, and then you try new things. You don't keep running the same plays. It probably took us a little longer than it should have in retrospect to actually say hey, you know what, this whole model was great to get us here, but things got to change. I got to change fast. It took us a while. It took us 7 years to actually get there. We probably could have done that year 4, year 5, and say, hey, we got to evolve.
But that's good to see that now, right? That's just it, is that knowing that threshold exists, you can almost, well, hopefully, and when it happens again, you'll see it again. Like
For anybody listening to the podcast, if you hear like
tin sounds in the
tin
background,
like rattling, it's because it's raining in Studio D.
literally the barn. That's what we're gonna call this. When we invite people out, we're gonna say, "Come to the barn." Did you? Was it that bad to get out here? Did you? No, it wasn't that bad.
No.
See,
I mean, I listened to your podcast on the way out here, so it went real fast.
Yeah, so it went super quick.
Yeah, super quick.
Super quick. Something that triggered in my mind when you were talking about going from 200, 100 over 100 million. It's very rare that happens, and you have to have a different mindset. But you kind of get to that point where I can only assume where you're no longer, working for the money. Like the money is driving you, right? Like the money is giving you the orders, right? That's got to be a weird position to be in, right? Because there's a point where you're everything you do is trying to hit a marker, and now you've got so many investors and so much drive and so much money you're receiving, and now it's like you're actually that money is telling you, listen, I know you don't want to do this, but you got to, because you got all these investors, and now the money is forcing you to go instead of you going, yeah, let's go get this money. It's like that money's going, no, you got to get going.
Yeah. And that didn't really happen to us until we sold the company.
Yeah.
So like
exactly. Yeah.
And, then we got bought by Nordstrom, and they taught us some lessons. Like, they're like, hey, like, this isn't working. Guys, like, there's a bad, like, Stitch Fix is that was told to us in the board meeting. Like, Stitch Fix is crushing you guys. And that was hard to hear. Not all of us took it that well. Some of us, it motivated us for change, and some of us are just upset. But it was real. I mean, they blew past us. Like, I think we got to 100 million faster than they did. But they got there, and then next thing you know, they're like $1 billion company.
Yeah.
I think they're billion plus revenue now, $3-4 billion market cap. They're crushing it. It's well on its way to, that $1 billion mark. But it took a round of change and a round of turnover, and we have the grown-ups in there now that are fresh and have that type of energy and don't have the cultural baggage of what used to exist. It's transformed.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. I think that's awesome. I love that you reference it as we and all that. I mean, that just shows like how much passion and no, it's good. It shows how much passion and pride you have in that. Man, that rain is really coming.
It is.
Yeah.
I guess that's what happens when you got a tin studio.
I bet you nobody can hear us on live right now. They're like, what is happening?
No, that's all good. Well, cool. Let's cut it there, because I'll tell you, at least for that part, I'll tell you that was great, man. That was a lot.
How long were we?
Well, we're at 1 hour and 27 minutes.
Okay, so even if the rain messes this whole thing up at the end, we're still good.
We got a ton of content there.
So I also wanted to say I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's cool you guys are pursuing this.
Yeah, thank you.
I've enjoyed your 3 podcasts so far, and it's awesome to be here for number 4.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much. It's so loud.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's okay. We can hear it, but the background here, we've got it set up. It won't pick it up.
Okay.
So we can talk normal. We're good. I'm gonna have to go through and turn it down.
Let's get out of here.
Everyone's gonna be like, "Why the hell are they yelling? What is going on? Jesus, what's going on there?" But let's pivot.
Yeah,
let's pivot.
So I did want to talk about diapers.com.
Yeah, let's do that.
Interesting story about what Amazon did with that.
You're still yelling.
I know, it's because it's loud. Back when Amazon was acquiring them, they brought their whole executive to everybody into a room, and they told them to shut their cell phones off. Like, they couldn't bring any cell phones into the room for this deal that they were going to make to acquire them. When they brought them in that room and they're going through negotiations, Amazon released their diaper service when that happened.
They what?
Their diaper service. They're like their subscription diaper service.
So wait, they brought diapers.com into the room. They were going to buy them. And then the second that was going on, Bezos said, "Hey, turn the switch on our diaper service."
Yep.
Get the hell out of here.
And got a deal for them, actually, because he was like, "Hey,
guess what?
We can buy you right here for this amount, or you can go just try to compete with us because we just launched our diaper service while you're in the room."
Oh, that's ruthless. That is, I'm telling you, listen.
Yeah.
I got this theory on Bezos. I'm going to tell you it right now. Couple things. Number one, that just shows that he's vindictive. Clearly, Like now I have two theories on him. Number one, my first theory is that some girl at Barnes and Noble broke that man's heart. Broke his heart. Some high school cheerleader wouldn't let him hang out.
It's like a social network.
Yeah. Well,
He just wanted to
broke
read
his
some
heart,
books.
and then he's like, you know what? I'm going to put Barnes and Nobles out of business. And then he just sat there in his garage and started selling books on his front lawn or whatever the hell it was. And he's like, I'm going to put Barnes and Nobles out of business. And then when it happened, he goes to Becky or whatever the hell her name is. And he goes, yeah, Becky, you're out of a job. And she goes, Jeff, I haven't worked there in 60 years. You just need to relax. All right. Just because I didn't hang out with you, just because I wouldn't date you, doesn't mean you got to get vindictive and start Amazon. Anyways, that's my set. But now I have a second theory that he must have had a babysitter that he was in love with, and she probably shut him down too. And he's like, you know what else I'm going to do? I'm going to put diapers.com out of business.
Well, he actually bought him for a lot of money.
Well,
but
whatever. It's a
That
theory.
that was the other option.
Yeah,
Put
sit
him
on
out
it.
of
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Just chew on that for a bit.
I will.
You'll think about it tonight, and you'll be like, yeah, he's right. It's super weird that a guy would try and sell books online and try to put up. And then what does he do?
What a dumb idea.
Then what does he do? He goes and starts he's opening
opens
up bookstores.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Full circle, man.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Let's talk kids and family. So, like, you guys all loaded up with kids so far. I'm sure more coming. I don't know. I'm just assuming, but I got one coming to say. What? Tell me about that. Does it change everything? Because here's the thing. From a business perspective, I'm super curious because, like, the CEO of the company I'm with right now, he just had a second little one, and he's a hustler, man. Like, he was at work the next day. You guys both different phases of your careers, and you know, Kevin, you mentioned that you're loving the fact that you get to be at home with your wife and your daughter.
Yeah.
Talk about that. Talk about being a dad and being a businessman.
You know, well,
My God, we got police cars now. What the hell is going on around here?
I've been unemployed much longer than I've been employed since I've had a daughter.
Oh, okay,
So I'd call that a gift that
perfect timing.
you know, most people aren't going to ask for.
Mhm.
But you know, I have that benefit because I grinded for 8 years and you know, had a good outcome there and can take some time. So that, I mean, that's been pretty special, but you certainly don't need that to create all sorts of special moments in those early days. But yeah, I mean, it's game changing, man. I mean, I think most people with children are going to tell you that, and it's hard to totally articulate, and you just got to experience it yourself, and you're going to. You know, you leave your house without a baby, and then you enter your house with
a
one.
baby, yeah.
Like, that's the weirdest.
It's
one.
not like bringing home a Christmas tree.
No.
Either. Like,
No,
it's-
that's when
No.
you're like, life's changed forever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get home with that child, and you're like, what am I doing?
holy crap.
Like I can barely care for myself.
Yeah.
How am I going to do this? And then they feel so breakable when in reality they're not.
Yeah.
They're very pliable. But no, all of them. Yeah, mine are fine.
Yeah. No, they're both
fallen a few
totally
times.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the youngest. Anyways, it's a scary moment. Those first couple days, you get zero sleep. Period. I don't know if that was your experience. That was mine.
I'm gonna tell you
Your
it was.
experience, yeah.
I'm gonna tell you it was just so we can remain friends.
Yeah, because
Okay.
you told me, Kevin, that you're like, yeah, I was expecting all this no sleep and whatever, and it was
Yeah, I mean,
totally
I didn't
fine.
get a lot of sleep.
What?
Because I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to be awake.
Oh,
She actually, like our daughter actually has slept pretty well from the beginning.
well, I mean, mine did too after a few months, but those first couple days were like a blur for me, at least. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
You
a-
had
Who knows? For like the first 6 months, emotional support
Yeah.
and foot rubs and just like anything you can do to support her. That's
Oh
it.
wait,
And maybe you
I
get
have to do
hold-
these things. I
and-
thought you were saying I'm going to give foot rubs. I'm like, yeah, I'm down with that. Hell yeah.
and maybe
6
you get
months
to
of foot rubs?
hold your child at some point
At some point
when
in
she
time.
needs a break. It's like, here, take him. I need to go to bed.
From what I understand, I get to change him. I'm gonna get to reclothe him, and then that's about it. other than that, it's
You're going to have to do all the work
Yeah.
until she's feeling better.
Yeah.
You have to change probably the first 5 diapers yourself and swaddle and all that stuff. And
I'm a master swaddler.
Yeah, well, see if that,
No, I'm
see
not.
if that stands at 4 a.m. on no sleep after the 3rd diaper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was hard.
And
for
then
me.
inevitably something will not go as planned. Like the baby's not going to feed appropriately, and your wife's going to freak out about that and think something's wrong with her. Your child's not going to use the bathroom as like for the first 50 hours or something crazy, and you're going to be like, "What is wrong with my kid?"
A lot of okay now what moments in there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff to freak out about.
Well, thanks guys.
The best thing to do is just be even keel, be cool.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Honestly,
Call for the nurse.
I don't think any. Well, I'm a fairly laid back person, so I think it'll be just fine.
Okay.
Just got to be on your game, man.
Yeah.
There's.
I don't even know what the hell that
backing
even
down.
means. Like, and I know, like, I know what context you're
It's like
putting it in,
when-
but it's like,
when you-
what does my game
when
even
you think
mean?
you're doing enough,
Yeah,
just do more.
do more. Yeah, fair enough.
And you'll be fine.
Have you heard? So I had a Christmas baby too. Obviously, my oldest
Mhm.
birthday is December 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
We had her December 22nd come home Christmas Eve. Bring her home Christmas Eve. One of the first phone calls I get is, "Hey, when are you coming over with the baby for Christmas Eve dinner
Never.
at my aunt's house?" No, we did it.
No, you did
We
not.
did. We went over there.
I didn't think you
because-
could take them out in
No.
like physical air, oxygen.
No. My mother.
You will think that.
My mother was the ultimate guilt tripper when it came to that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And she made it so.
Yeah.
And so we ended up at my aunt's house having Christmas Eve dinner. Shayna was pissed. I'm just like, I don't know what to do. This must be normal.
Keep going.
And so I do that, and then it's Christmas and all the stuff, and we got like no sleep and had everybody over the whole time. That was our first experience with bringing a kid home.
Yeah.
And it was just like all this family. That's why I think it's weird when people don't want to have a lot of family around with the newborn. Michael. No, I'm just kidding. Because that was my first experience, was just like there was family everywhere.
Well, we had a Chicago baby. She was there for 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
But my family, her family's pretty small. My family's pretty small, so they had time in the hospital. My mother-in-law stayed with us for a couple weeks, so
Yeah.
I feel like we got the right amount of.
Yeah.
you know?
That is good. That is good.
So, were you any more laid back about the second?
Oh,
child?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Like the first, we were super regimented. Like, oh, this kid is going to get sick, or it has a fever. What are we going to do? Send to the world, or everything. Everything's an emergency with the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing's an emergency.
Mm-hmm.
The second, we're like after that, and with the first, and every time we call the doctor or call the pediatrician, they'd be like, just chill out. A kid can have 105 temperature. It's fine. And I'm like, what? No, I mean, not that.
Wait, what?
Wait.
Yeah, no.
That's not fine.
That's not fine.
Not 105.
Hell, I don't even have kids, and I know that.
It wasn't 105, but it was like 103, and they're like, yeah, that's totally fine for children. For adults, it's not, but for children, it's fine. We went a little bit overboard. Every parent does.
Yeah.
You're going to
Yeah.
experience
Oh,
this. Every parent goes overboard with the first, and the second one, you realize, okay, that fell on the ground for
10 minutes.
10 minutes. It's the dog licked it,
That was
and
there
then she put
yesterday.
it in her mouth. It's fine.
It's fine.
She'll be good.
It's totally
She's
fine.
building up immunities. Like
That's right.
This morning, I put a dog bowl out for the dogs to drink out of, and they were drinking out of it. And then Josephine walks over there and just starts splashing in it, and then licking her hands. And we're like, ugh.
Yeah, our dog
Yeah.
loves the cat food, man.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
And we used to be super paranoid about it. Now if it happens, like, okay, she probably shouldn't eat the cat food.
Yeah.
But
At least you didn't eat all of it.
Yeah, or oh, you just found milk under the couch and you drank it, and then I pour it out and it's like lumps.
It's fine.
But you know what?
You only do that once.
But you know what? Josephine never gets sick.
Oh, really?
Ever. My oldest, sick all the time.
Yeah.
Not all the time, but she used to get sick a lot.
Yeah.
Now, Josephine never gets sick because, and I'm convinced it's because she's built up all these immunities from eating who knows what. And
Whenever I say this, all parents look at me like, no, you're not. But the context I mean this in is that I'm ready to step into the adventure. So I'm ready for the adventure. 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I mean, December 8th. So,
hey,
yeah.
It'll be fun, man.
This has been a long time. This has been a long time coming.
Yeah, that's right.
It's going to be awesome.
It has been a crazy journey to get to this point, and now it's just, it's funny because we used to laugh, and we would go through our moments where we would go to, doctor's appointments and all that stuff, and there would be frustrations, and our cure was always to like go out and do some emotional shopping. So we would go out to Nordstrom or wherever and just shop for a bit, and it would never fail. We would always see somebody's kid screaming their head off, throwing a tantrum, losing their marbles, and we'd look at each other and we go, we're good for now. This is okay.
Your son's not going to be like that.
No, God, no. He's going to be perfect.
Not.
No, he won't be. He's not going to be perfectly well behaved.
Just criticize those parents.
Yeah,
exactly.
And know that's never going to be.
Yeah, that's right.
My first is nothing like that. My second.
Oh man, we always.
She's been on the floor in an airport before screaming.
Oh man, we always sit there and we would totally be those non-parent judgmental of parent people.
It was funny because all the stuff y'all are going through, trying to get pregnant and all that. And I was sitting here, we were having dinner the other night, and your wife was over here while we had some people over. And I was sitting there thinking, and even the stuff, on a daily basis, because I know you're coming up to the last couple of weeks of pregnancy, and those tend to be the hardest, just because your wife tends to be the most uncomfortable and blames it on you.
100%.
But looking, being in that moment and then looking back a year or so ago when everything was happening.
Yeah.
And then if you were in that moment a year or so ago to be able to see where you're at right now, how awesome would some of that have been to be able to have that peace of mind that like, this is where I'm going to be. And then in the moment trying to realize that everything that y'all come through to get to this point, how awesome is that? Yeah. Just a little bit of encouragement because I know that these next couple of weeks can be crazy, especially if she ends up being a little bit late. It becomes a really, really tough situation.
Yeah,
mentally.
I'm always the optimist for people. I really am. Like I always look at people when they go through rough situations, and I am a firm believer. I think it's just because I hit a lot of hard miles in my life that. When I tried to, I found a theme that when I tried to force things, I found that things went wrong. And when I started to just believe that there was a purpose and a place for everything, you have this calm that goes over you that just goes, there's a plan behind this. There's a reason for this. Mm-hmm. Someone has got a plan for you. You don't know what it is. You don't know why, but you just have to believe that it's there. And obviously, my wife, coming from a very faith-based home in the South, my communication to her was always that, listen, God has a plan. It's just not this time, but it's going to happen. And then you just have to have faith in that, and you just believe that everything we went through was for the story of what it was going to become. And you're 100% right. We often joke about like, there's going to be moments where we're going to sit there when our child's having a meltdown. We're going to look at each other and go, you wanted to pay for this. Don't forget, you paid for this. And it was a bonding moment between all the heartbreak and stuff that you go through when you go through those frustrating times. We could talk about it now. At the time, though, like pretty devastating stuff to like not know. And especially when scientifically you can't explain it. Like doctors would look at us and they go, everything is fine. Like you guys test completely positive. Everything looks good. You just fall in this weird category of unexplained. And we had no rhyme or reason to figure that out. And so you kind of just fall in these weird, like, why? Like, what is going on? And hope and faith and moments of like, my wife would go through these crazy hormone injection things. And then on top of that,
I worked with her.
Hormones.
Yeah, right.
I worked with her. Then.
Yeah. Bobby, I remember Bobby calls me one time out of the blue, and I had not talked to my wife that day yet, and he just calls me out of the blue. He's like, "Hey, is your wife all right?"
No.
And I was like, "Oh God, what happened?" And he's like, "Well, here's the thing." And he tells me, and I was like, "Yeah, she's fine." So and we talked, and it was all good, but. But there's a lot of like crazy emotional highs when you go through this sands through the hourglass thing of like, okay, the procedure happens and then you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait. And then unbelievable highs where she would communicate, I don't feel pregnant, but maybe I do feel pregnant. Maybe I don't, maybe I do. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you find out that you're not. And this just like devastating crash happens where you just skid out. And just to wrap this up, the ironic thing, the so crazy thing about it was we had switched doctors. I just did not get a good feeling from this doctor we were using. And I was like, let's go talk to another doctor. So we talked to this one guy who was like a colonel at one point was a colonel in the Army, specialized in this thing, in infertility treatments. And it was so crazy because he he interviewed us and he was like, yeah, you know what? This is a great situation. I think we can definitely help you guys. Like, you guys are perfect candidates for what we do. And so we're like, great. We left there. And my wife was like, I love him. Like, I love it. And his whole thing was like, if you want to work out, work out. Whereas the other doctor was like, you should stop working out. If you want to have a drink, go drink. Like, if you want to do this, like, just enjoy your life, do your thing. That was his perception. Like, that was his recommendation. And that was at like the beginning of February, right? So because we were in between doctors, we had to take a month off. And then he's like, and then we're going to start things like mid-March. Well, St. Patrick's Day rolls around and we all go out and have a good time. And Brittany goes in to start doing treatments. And the woman's like, oh, you're already pregnant. And she's like, no, that's not possible. And she's like, no, because you have to take a blood test before you can start going through the fertility hormone treatments. And she takes a blood test and she's like, yeah, you're already pregnant. And so in the end, we didn't even need fertility treatment. We didn't need any of that stuff. I honestly believe that what we needed was less control. I honestly think that what we needed was to stop trying to force things and just let it happen. Ever since then, here we are. This is our story and we're just starting to write it and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
It's awesome, man.
Yeah, so it's good. Okay, here's the thing. With that, last episode, I loved how we finished.
Okay.
So I want to do that again. And Kevin, you can follow, you can either lead in or you can follow suit. But what we did at the end of last episode is friends I'm proud of. Last episode we picked a couple friends each that we know and we gave, kudos to because of something that they're doing. And we're just like, man, I'm proud of you. Like that's such a great accomplishment. So do you want to start or do you want us to go first? What do you want to do?
I'm going to follow suit. I got to think about this.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. Do you got one you want to start with, Bobby?
I do not.
You do not.
Yeah, I'm gonna think about this too.
Okay. I got one. I got a guy that I know. He is I would consider him an acquaintance friend because we worked together. His name's Graham Collins, and he was my director at the last company I was with. And he's a great guy. He's a really good leader. He's like got a big giant heart. Like he's the guy that when things were crazy at work, he would throw on one of those inflatable T-Rex outfits and walk around the office and like get people going. He was the guy that T-Rex? Yeah. I mean, he called it Clososaurus Rex because it used to go around the sales floor and like, it was great. And like he was the guy that came up with all the crazy incentive ideas at the office that got people united. Super, super great guy. And the reason I'm proud of him is he recently left the company that I was with. And he had been there for 4 years. He was like one of the first initial employees, one of the first sales hires, something like that. And now the company has become a $30-40 million company. And he chose to leave, and that's not why I'm proud of him. Why I'm proud of him is he left with no expectation of landing anywhere. he had a great position at a great company. He had great, all the benefits you get from being a part of tech for 4 years in a growing brand. And he's someone that follows his heart and follows his passion. And he, just up and went, you know what? I want something bigger. I'm at a different place in my career. And he chose to just up and go. Now, I think that there's probably more to that story because I think he clearly has a plan in place. But he has taken this last month and he went and he got married and he did all these things. And I'm just really proud of him because I think it took a lot of guts to do that, to follow your heart when you know what you can do is what you've always done, and just sit there and, do the status quo. But proud of him because I think that he's going to go do some exceptional things, and it takes a lot of guts to walk away from something that you've invested so much time in and your heart in. So, yeah, proud of him for sure. Graham Collins, he's a good dude, really good guy.
So I got one. So my buddy Andy, who has actually stayed with us this last week, him and his wife, over the last couple months, been going through some stuff. Got to a point where him and his wife just became very open about some things and honest. And they're really an inspiration. We're actually having dinner right here in the barn, and they opened up about it with everybody, how all the stuff that they were going through and how it's brought them closer together, and they're living their best marriage life right now because of that, because they were so open and honest with each other. Really a great role model for what's happening. And there's so much more joy in him and his life. And I really appreciated him and his honesty and where he was coming from, being able to open up to honestly, there was a couple of random strangers at the table. And he was totally into it. And it was a real inspiration. And I'm really proud of where he's going with his family and with his marriage, and, how he's treating that and how he's approaching it on a daily basis.
That's a really good one.
All right. This is technically two.
Oh, perfect. Let it rip.
Husband and wife and family. So remind me, do you know the Ronins, Kristen Ronin?
I don't know if I do.
So my wife, Rachel, grew up with Kristen. So they've been best friends since high school. And first time we ever came down to Austin was to visit them about 4 years ago. And Kristen and her husband, Jacob, are probably two of the greatest people you ever meet. About a year and a half ago, I think they finally decided, like, hey, let's, or probably 2.5 years now, or 2 years, or whatever it is. They're like, hey, let's give it a shot. I think, it'd be fun to have a child. And so Rachel and I were also trying to have a child at the time. And one day Rachel was planning to call Kristen to tell her that she was pregnant. And on that same phone call, Kristen was planning to tell Rachel that she was pregnant. And they had the same due date, which is crazy.
Wow.
But then a few weeks later, once the ultrasound started happening, they realized they were going to have twins. But it was a really hard pregnancy for them. Probably 4 months early, the boys wanted to come out. Like,
oh my gosh.
And it was crazy. Like, it was very dangerous for them to come out, obviously, at that time.
Yeah, no kidding.
And she was put on bed rest. There's like this date that they were trying to get to before when they knew it was safer. It was never safe to come early, but it was safer.
Yeah.
So they made it. They made it to this day. But they had these boys 2 months early. And so it was still very dicey. They got through it. They got the boys home. But along the way, there were just other challenges they were having as well.
Yeah.
With family and some health issues. And it was just like I feel like bad things just kept happening to them. They had like a leak in their house. It flooded their home, and things just kept happening. And, Rachel and I we couldn't feel more bad for them and they were just going through all these challenges with the kids and then with other issues as well. We were over there. We took Chloe over there to their house last Friday, and now the boys are like 17 months, I think, and they're running around. They don't have to like stress out about them every moment now. Like, they're much more relaxed, and her health issues have subsided, and you can tell they're just like doing better, and they just got through a lot of things, and it's just been really amazing and inspiring to like see them get through all this with sanity. And now these boys are like healthy, and they're developed, and they're running around, and they're talking and just having a lot of fun, and it's just been an amazing journey. but not easy for them.
Yeah.
So I'm proud, just like the fact that they've been able to get through all that, just continually facing like adversity and finding ways to get through it together. And I know it hasn't been easy for them, but now I feel like, they get to watch their boys that were in danger not that long ago, run around and have a good time and play with each other. And so it's just been really awesome.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. The strength you find from adversity. Very cool.
Yep.
Should we? I don't know if we can end on a higher note than that, man. Kevin, thank you so much for coming, man.
Absolutely.
This was great. I hope you had a good time. I'm sorry.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
I never imagined ever doing a podcast.
But isn't it so easy, right?
Yeah.
Like it was just natural and organic.
You just talk with headphones on, and it makes it, you can actually hear each other. It's
feel
weird.
like
It's weird when you take them off and you try to listen to people. You're like, wait a minute, I need these back on.
Yeah.
Because
it's
I
a
can.
good experience.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
It's very cathartic.
You're not looking in a crowd, like I've done panels and stuff before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With you guys.
Good,
Yeah.
man. Good. Well,
love what you guys are doing.
we definitely should touch base again on this thing because I'd love to see, how this whole thing transpires for you. And if Bobby ever
Absolutely.
needs someone to fill in while I'm gone, man, you can have my seat for sure if you're up for it.
Massive boots to fill.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. We really appreciate the time. This was episode number 4, and
Yeah. Keep listening and keep, if any great guests that you think need to be on the show, definitely send them our way.
follow us on Instagram, OK Now What Show, and on Facebook, the OK Now What Show. And yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thank y'all.